Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Joker, Folie, Deux, starring Joaquin Phoenix, Lady Gaga, Brendan Gleeson, and Catherine Keener, directed by Todd Phillips, or as this movie should be called, Joker, Madness of Two. Now, before I get into this, I've heard stories about this movie before anything ever happened. Like, I heard Warner Brothers didn't screen this movie and because they had no confidence in it, or maybe they were confident enough to not screen the movie and think it's a good movie and all that bullshit. And this came from Joaquin Phoenix's dream before Joker 1 made $1 billion or ever came out or whatever. And then there's also 3 different endings of this damn thing, and they stuck to the one that they picked for this movie. We'll talk about it. But before I get into it, I have seen this movie twice. The first time I kind of had a positive reaction. I would say not as good as the first one, but after the second time, I'm thinking, oh shit. And what do I mean by that? Let's get into the movie, shall we? We start with the Looney Tunes animated sequence starring Arthur Fleck, aka Joker, returned by Joaquin Phoenix, called Me in My Shadow, where Arthur is going on the Murray Franklin show, which was shown at the end of the first Joker film, and he gets arrested by the cops and put in Arkham Asylum. But the difference is, this opening scene makes Arthur sing What the World Needs Now Is Love, Sweet Love, as I felt we didn't need a reminder of how it all happened in an animated Looney Tunes kind of way. Just watch the first movie again, or that clip on YouTube, because it's on there, and I didn't get that opening sequence at all as we move on 2 years later after the first movie, with Arthur being awakened in Arkham Asylum with awful guards led by Jackie Sullivan, played by Brendan Gleeson, who are absolutely fucking horrible, while they take advantage of Arthur's jokes and stardom as the Clown Prince of Darkness. While Arthur cleans out his bucket of, I guess, piss, I was like, oh my god. And showers and puts some clothes on, and taking Arthur to his lawyer, Marianne Stewart, played by Catherine Keener, who's just as fucked up as the guards in this movie. While trying to help Arthur, she's led to believe he's going through death penalty because of how much he needs help. While walking to Marianne, they pass by a music class, and who's in it? Lee Quinzel, or aka Harley Quinzel, or Harley Quinn, as I'm going to call her for the rest of the show, and played by Lady Gaga. And I can't believe, after 5 years since the first movie, the characters died down after the first film, as I don't like Arthur in this movie thus far, and none of the new characters are working for me, like Marianne, to the guards, to hell, even fucking Harley Quinn. And is this the best director Todd Phillips can do after this? He's giving me the middle finger for loving the first fucking movie so much, and it reminds me of the Hangover sequels. The man should never do another sequel as well as another fucking movie again. Ever! Marianne takes Arthur to the interrogation room to be filmed, and I get the impression Arthur has a split personality named Joker. And we move on to the outside of Arkham Asylums, and one of Arthur's cellmates, Ricky, asks Arthur to kiss him, and Jackie decides to take Arthur to the singing room, or class, let's call it, where he saw Harley, and tells him he'll take him there, and he does a week later. And the cinematography in this doesn't make the movie look the same as the first Joker, as this is the worst use of 70mm film projectors as far as recent movies are going, to 70mm projectors after Oppenheimer and Dune Part 2. Both very great movies, but this is not one of them. This feels the most disappointing of any of the movies using the 70mm projectors after those two movies. While taking a break from singing, Arthur is asked to sit next to Harley so she can have a cigarette with him, and the score is not as great as the first movie, as this is a musical, which is a bad idea, particularly after casting Lady Gaga. While the whole movie has 30 plus songs throughout the entire movie, just a fair warning, I had to look it up on the credits. It has 30 plus songs, 32, 37, I forget which one it was. And I had to look in the credits while Arthur sees Harvey Dent, one-faced, this whole movie, this time on the TV saying Arthur is going to death through death penalty and starts bursting into song. And this is the part of the reason why I don't like musicals to begin with. Beginning because they're in the middle of a dialogue and all of a sudden they start bursting into song to the point it makes no fucking sense. And this is part of the reason why I don't want to see fucking Wicked on the big screen unless if it's nominated for Best Picture. I don't do musicals on the show for a reason. And this is the reason alone, unless if it's a great movie, like West Side Story, for example. Arthur signs one of the guards' books by writing, "I hope you get cancer," after he said quietly, "It better be worth a fortune if they fry his ass." And watch an old musical movie as Harley burns the piano in the music room, and they split up from the other prisoners and go outside and have another fucking musical moment where they burst into song and they throw Arthur's ass in a room where he can't go anywhere with Harley until she sneaks into the alone room, and she says they're releasing her because he's a bad influence on her. And they suddenly kiss and hump each other's asses, which was weird to see in IMAX 70mm. And don't get me wrong, I loved Lady Gaga in Bradley Cooper's A Star is Born. And I don't remember her performance in Ridley Scott's House of Gucci, which is coming sooner than you think, so I'll talk about it when I get there. But I don't like her take on Harley Quinn because she comes off hypocritical and annoying the crap out of me. And you'll see when we get to the end. I swear to God I will. Marianne gets Arthur in a room for an interview with Patty Myers, played by Steve Coogan, for the TV, who comes off like a prick in this movie. And I didn't like this scene, nor do I like him in the movie whatsoever, as he asks him, what does he want to die? And here's the impression I got, where the Joker is a split personality and says he's crazy in love with Harley and starts fucking singing, which is ridiculous from the get-go, while Harley grabs a trash can to break into the TV store to grab a small TV, which was a terrible scene to end the subject with. Arthur is about to go to the courthouse, along with Marianne against Harvey Dent, and I was reminding myself, what the fuck happened to his condition to the laughter, as it barely happens in this movie. And that was bothering me. And as he's in the courtroom, everybody who's with him are cheering for him, while Harley shows up late, and Arthur was looking for her in the audience, as she does show up while Dr. Victor Liu, played by Ken Leung, whom I reviewed so many times, testifies against Arthur as he spent 89 minutes with Arthur, while he's led to believe he met with him for 2 hours, as I'm led to believe that was bullshit as days go by the judge come off like an asshole anyways. Swear to God, this movie's just Harley comes up to the cameras and says to Marianne she's making him look like a fucking idiot, and Marianne gets to the impression she is taking advantage of Arthur, and Marianne tells him she went to school for psychiatry and is making him look like a motherfucking fool. And he dreams of a show called Joker and Harley that is similar to the Murray Franklin show, and the music does eventually stop because she made it all about herself when it was about them. And Harley points a gun at Arthur and shoots him in the stomach. Oh, this is what's going to telegraph the ending. We'll get there. And we're back at Arkham Asylum, and Arthur and Ricky sit together as Arthur has a visitor. And I don't like the scene with Harley pointing a gun at Arthur. Arthur sees a visitor. His visitor is Harley, and he asks him about how much she was bullshitting around to meet Arthur, and tells him Marianne doesn't care about him, as Harley does tell him she's pregnant. And I thought, what in the actual fuck? As she starts singing Why Do Birds Suddenly Appear? And I'm thinking, stop with the goddamn music. I mean, god damn it, stop. And making this into a fucking musical, as the first movie wasn't a musical. But this motherfucker that was a bad idea from director Todd Phillips. While Sophie Dumont, returned by Zazie Beetz, oh man, that went from the first movie. She testifies against Arthur while Harley's sitting right behind Arthur, and Marianne asks Sophie questions, and Arthur is getting irritated by Marianne's questions, and suddenly I'm getting irritated with this fucking movie. Suddenly he dreams about himself, and Harley is in it, and I just don't care for the movie any further, as Arthur fires Marianne from being his lawyer and kisses her, excuse me, and represents himself. And I got very irritated with the movie because it feels like it's dragging for too long, as this movie is too long at 2 hours and 18 fucking minutes, and I unfortunately felt every minute of this thing. Harley visits Arthur and says to him he's Joker, and he goes back to Arkham Asylum and gets cheered on by his prison mates and starts breaking into song while Jackie and the guards bring Arthur and Ricky as well as other prisoners down from singing. But they refuse to stop, and we move on to the next day in the courtroom, bringing out Gary Puddles, who was the little man who got laughed at in the first movie, testifying against Arthur, and I can't believe he's being laughed at by the audience in the courtroom and in this movie. Both times I saw this, they were laughing. As soon as he got in the fucking movie, they start laughing. Oh, that is such bullshit. Arthur questions Gary in a ridiculous accent as Gary says he's afraid to go outside and can't sleep nor return to work, and is eventually released, and they finish for the day, and another goddamn musical moment pops up as it looks like they're getting married, and at this point, the movie really lost me, as it can try to resurrect itself, but trust me, this movie isn't going to get any better in my opinion. Arthur gets back to Arkham Asylum, and Jackie and his guards beat the crap out of him, and tear Arthur's clothes off and puts him in a cell, and as Ricky is killed by the guards, and at this point, I just don't care for the fucking movie anymore. Well, next day comes, Harley puts on her clown makeup, and we get to the courthouse, and Arthur giving his final statement about how he's just Arthur, and the Joker is his split personality, which, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't, and it, also he says it doesn't exist. That doesn't make any motherfucking sense either. And this monologue is horribly acted by Joaquin Phoenix, as he's a much better actor in this movie than this, as people start to leave, and I wish I could have left the theater for this, but if it weren't for the show, I wouldn't have made it through this movie. It's that bad. Arthur calls Harley and sings her in her message box, and Arthur is guilty of 3 different charges and almost goes through death penalty until the courtroom explodes and blows Harvey Dent's face in half, but we don't see Two-Face as a couple of men in clown masks take Arthur to wherever the hell they were going until Arthur runs out of their car and looks for Harley, and as she's already dumped him after the final statement, and I just want this movie to fucking end at this point. Arthur does find Harley with her hair cut on the stairs where he danced in the first movie, and he tries to talk to her while she sings and tells him they're no more after his final testimony. Oh God, she gave up on him, and Arthur gets arrested again. This is such fucking bullshit. I shit you not. That is such fucking bullshit. He's taken back to Arkham Asylum, and now I'm thinking, what the fuck's going to happen to the baby? And I guess that doesn't matter, but who gives a fuck? And Arthur gets a visitor from someone who is never said, as some kid who's in jail, and I swear to God, this kid looked like that actor that played Joker in that Gotham TV show, Cameron Monaghan. Arthur telling Arthur a joke, and all of a fucking sudden stabs him. And that's when I thought, oh fuck, this is what happens. Because Harley Quinn shot him in the stomach, and now he's heartbroken, and now this motherfucker stabs him, he becomes the real motherfucking Joker. This makes no sense! And we never get his name, either laughs, and this movie ends there, and that was a bullshit climax, as this was a bullshit ending, and let's see how much worse this is than the first Joker with a rating. Oh, fuck, this is such a middle finger to the first movie, it's not funny. I'll give this movie a 2.5 out of 10. The first movie was a 9.3 out of 10, but this sequel fell flat on the ground, as this is the biggest disappointment of the year, and after the Hangover sequels, which is a series I don't wish to do, if they ever make a 4th part, I'm not going to do it. And after those sequels in this movie, there's a damn good reason Todd Phillips should never do sequels ever again as making this a musical, as this movie's biggest mistake, particularly after casting Lady Gaga. Unless I hear Wicked is nominated for Best Picture this year's Oscars, I'll do it then, but most musicals, I don't do that for the show, for a damn good reason, as this movie has 30 plus songs, which is super irritating as this whole fucking movie is. I don't like any of the characters in this movie, not even Joker, nor Harley Quinn, or anybody for that matter, as the score felt useless for the reason this movie is a fucking musical, and that was it's a mistake to make a sequel to this movie. I shit you not. And like The Hangover, I don't want Todd Phillips making another fucking movie again. The cinematography just doesn't feel the same after the first movie, as it was filmed like a movie set in the early 1980s, but it was filmed like a 70s Martin Scorsese movie. This was a waste of the 70 millimeter projection. After Oppenheimer and Dune Part 2, that was a missed opportunity of this movie to do, as this movie feels like the most disappointing out of the three very recent movies, and this movie just felt like the biggest disappointment of the year, as this is too long at 2 hours and 18 minutes, and I felt every minute of it, and this is a solid non-recommendation. And after The Hangover and now this, director Todd Phillips, you're a hack. You should never make another. You should not only make sequels to biggest hits like this. In my opinion, this motherfucker should never make another movie ever again. I didn't like the Hangover sequels, and there's a reason I won't do them. And I don't like the sequel either. And this had a bullshit ending, as this whole fucking movie was bullshit anyways. That makes me think he's done with DC movies. But maybe it's time for Todd Phillips to retire from filmmaking. It's not funny anymore. So thank you guys for returning with me to the Batman retrospective. And there will be probably more coming when the Batman Part 2 comes out. Until then, fuck this movie.